Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano, an icon of Latin American literature, has died in Montevideo at the age of 74. His best-known book, The Open Veins of Latin America, told the story of 5 centuries of pillage and plunder at the hands of successive colonial and imperial interests. For many inside and outside Latin America, it was the book that introduced them to a different version of the continent, its past and its present.
El mundo no está hecho de átomos, el mundo está hecho de historias.
The world is not made of atoms. The world is made of stories. I believe that the world should be made of stories because the stories that one tells, that one recites, that one diffuses, the stories that are allowed to convert the past into the present and also make the distant become close and possible. The world has a huge amount of people, a sea of tiny flames. There are no two flames alike. Every person shines with his or her light.
Lo que está lejano en algo próximo y posible y visible.
In an interview with Telesur in September of 2013, Galeano spoke of the legacy of the former Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez.
The true memory is the memory that lives in us. And in this, it is more than clear that Hugo Chavez lives in the collective memory of these people and in the memory of the people of Latin America and many other people outside of Latin America, but those that learnt the invaluable lesson of dignity.
And Bolivian President Evo Morales also expressed his sadness on behalf of the Bolivian people. He calls Galeano a master of decolonization and liberation.
On behalf of the Bolivian people, I express our condolences for the loss of our brother Eduardo Galeano. Not only Bolivia, not only Latin America, but the world loses one of its most important figures. The world loses a master of decolonization and of the liberation of our nations.
And the Pakistani writer and activist Tariq Ali knew Galeano well. We asked him what made the Uruguayan writer so special.
I think Eduardo Galeano was a very unique person in the history of the South American continent. What Simon Bolivar accomplished with his sword, Galeano attempted to accomplish with his pen. He wrote about the entire continent. He covered aspects of history that had been unknown to many, many people in South America, leave alone the rest of the world. He wrote about the indigenous people. He wrote about the workers of South America who built the lines on which trains crossed borders. He was a lyrical journalist. And I think he was both optimistic and pessimistic. His will was very optimistic. His intellect could be pessimistic. Why? Because he had observed with his own eyes the period of military dictatorships in South America, when American imperialism attempted to crush the resistance in every single South American country. And in Galeano's own country, Uruguay, the repression was vicious. So he's lived through that phase, and then he lived to see the rise of the World Social Movement in Porto Alegre. He lived to see the victory of the Bolivarians in Venezuela, in Ecuador, in Bolivia. He lived to see the recovery of democracy in his own country, Uruguay. And he saw Mojica become the president of Uruguay, a former Tupamaros guerrilla. So he naturally felt both pessimistic and optimistic. And the most important thing about him is that his example of writing pure, truthful journalism, of telling stories about the lives of ordinary people, that many young journalists today could learn from.
Our correspondent Laureano Ponce is in Buenos Aires, where millions were inspired by Galeano's work. He tells us of the author's importance for the continent.
The award-winning Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano died this morning at age 74 in his hometown in Montevideo from lung cancer. Galeano was known because of his personal style, characterized for combining narrative journalism and history, such as in his masterpiece, The Open Veins of Latin America, which has been translated to over 20 languages. Galeano was also known because of his left-wing political views and his commitment to the revolutionary and progressive political processes of Latin America since the Cuban Revolution up to the present. Galeano was admitted in the hospital last Friday, and he passed away this morning. He wrote over 35 books and has worked in several newspapers. In 1973, after a coup in Uruguay, he fled to Buenos Aires, where he founded and directed the Crisis magazine. Laureano Ponce, Telesur, Buenos Aires.